everyone, and welcome to a brand new spoiler review episode for Skeleton Crew here on Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
We're back at it for episode 4 of Skeleton Crew here. Can't say I remember no Attin. That's the title of this one. It's directed by the Daniels, of course, from Everything Everywhere All at Once fame, and written by the co-creators co-showrunners rather on this one, Christopher Ford and John Watts. A lot in this particular episode, but also not so much in this particular episode, or maybe there is more than I think right now. And I always love reviewing these episodes with these guys because they always seem to unearth things that I hadn't thought about when watching an episode. So this is going to be a fun little review we're going to do on this particular episode. Of course, focusing on Acchran, focusing on what happens with SM-33, going into what I assume is a civil war that has been raging for centuries or decades on Acchran, and leading us to a pretty scary moment with SM-33 and the coordinates for Attin and what happens to those kids, but also an episode that shows Neel coming to the forefront here, not only finding a new friend and a new younger warrior in Star Wars, but also stepping up to fight off SM-33 and help the kids escape from that situation there with Jod's help. So a lot in this episode. We're going to break it down for you. Michael, your overall thoughts. Did you like this episode? Did it work for you? What's your feelings on this one?
Overall, yes, it worked. This show is working for me. I was talking about it last night, and I think the thing that's great about this show is that seemingly I did like a quick run through of YouTube, and for the most part, for once, like maybe the first time since Andor, Star Wars fans all seem to generally be in agreement. Like, for the most part, everyone is like, yeah, this is good. Having a good time. Some people are like, oh, it's a little young, but like everyone is like, yeah, this is good. I'm into this. I want to know more. I'm enjoying this. This is a fun adventure in the Star Wars universe. And people who are not Star Wars fans are also going, oh, this is fun. I actually like this. This isn't confusing. I'm enjoying this. So I think it's doing everything right. I thought this was a fun episode. I thought, and it'll be fun to talk about with you. I think this episode had a lot to say. I think they just there was a lot of heart to this episode. It really made you care about these characters. It deepened the relationships across the board with everybody in big ways and small ways. It had commentary on war, which is really what George Lucas wants to talk about with his Star Wars. So again, it feels like it has all the touch points of what Star Wars should be while riffing on other things. And speaking of riffing, Star Wars over the past couple of series owes a lot to Disney's Treasure Planet. That's all I'm gonna say. Between the map in Ahsoka, which was a straight lift from Treasure Planet, and now what's going on with 33 and his faulty memory, as far as getting to the treasure, which is straight up Martin Short's Ben character in Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet and Star Wars, they love each other. It's like the Commando gif. It's like or the Predator gif. It's just like, yep, we're shaking hands. We like it. So I was very happy. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, they're like, well, we're not going to remake it live action, but we're
not going to give you a live action Treasure Planet, but we're just going to do it in Star Wars.
Shannon, your thoughts on this? You agree with Michael's connections to Treasure Planet here? What are your overall thoughts on this episode? Did it work for you? Was it a little too kiddie, or did it actually hammer some points across here overall?
Spoiler alert, Johnny thought it was too kiddie.
I did.
If the question is thrown out, your opinion has been known.
How dare you?
So Treasure Planet was not a box office success way back in the day. It was one of a handful of films that they were like, we're going to try to lean into this action adventure genre, like with Atlantis, and it didn't produce the box office results that they wanted, and that's why they don't really do those anymore. But I do agree that the connections are 100% there. Also, the connections to the Goonies are, they were already heavy in the series, but they're really heavy in this episode, which as an unabashed Goonies lover, I thought was fantastic. Was this as exciting as the previous episodes up until the end? No, not really. But it really did further the character of Neel quite a bit. And it does remind you that these are kids, and kids are acting the way how kids would act.
Yeah.
And even though you do get caught in the fun of it, there are those moments, especially with Fern, where it's like, oh, that's right. We're watching this swashbuckling adventure. But at the end of the day, these are still children.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the progression of their relationship with Jod, I thought maybe they needed something in between this episode, kind of in terms of just the way that they relate to him. But overall, I did really enjoy it. And again, this did not have, as far as I know, this did not have the budget that the Acolyte had. This one looks real good, whereas that one, not so much.
Yeah, I made that comment a few times doing my recording my reaction this morning. When I was watching, I was like, this looks fantastic. Like, it really does. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm not as seasoned as some people. I can't tell the volume versus regular stuff. To me, it can sometimes I can get fooled by that. So for me, all I'm saying is it looks really damn good. And the way they set out at Acchran and the ruins of it all and the places they went to, I thought the set design here was so well done. So I agree with you on that one, Shannon. I didn't think it was a kiddie episode, Michael, but I do think it was focused on the kid-centric in its approach. And you know what? I think they earned this episode because those first 3 episodes were damn good. And I liked it. We slowed that down a little bit, focused on the kids, focused on their relationship. They left Jod on the ship. So let's see what they're going through. And then we walk into this story about what the upbringing on this planet has been like versus their upbringing at Attin, where there's nobody fighting. But why is nobody fighting? What is actually going on there? That's the mystery that we're going to solve at some point. But at Acchran is a place where war has happened been happening for a long time, for generations, where the kids are programmed to believe their side is right, the other side is wrong, and one day I will lead us to victory. And we see this thing. So I like the commentary, as you said, Michael, about war in this episode. But I enjoyed the character of Hayna. I like her being a part of this. General Strix, maybe not quite as much. It wasn't enough fleshed out there. But I liked what we got. And then what it led to with that moment with SM-33, I mean, rising up here to rip the kids limb from limb was super scary. So to me, what it led to was fun. But the overall episode itself, very kid-centric in the way they approach the conversations about war. But that's okay, because these are kids. And as you said, Shannon, getting those moments with Fern where she's breaking down a little bit, and then getting those moments with Neel as well, I thought were really touching and moving. So in the end, I think it worked for what it was trying to do. And as the Daniels do, they love to put that heart in the middle of some crazy shit that's going down, like, and everything everywhere.
There was a lot of heart. I mean, I know like it's cheesy and mushy, but like Star Wars has a lot of heart to it. I mean, we all, I think this is where Skeleton Crew is really getting a lot of things right that I think other people get wrong, which is Star Wars is so ingrained in everyone's pop culture DNA at this point that we all, those of us who love Star Wars, we care about Star Wars so much. And there are constant discussions of, does this feel Star Wars? Does this not feel Star Wars? Is this correct? Right. And we get very into the weeds of, well, technically, in Coruscant, they wouldn't have ever have done this, but in this one episode, Filoni did this, and taxi cabs do exist. And you have all of these discussions. But at the end of the day, George Lucas, for the fact that he's a weird, introverted dude, put a lot of heart and humor and fun and silliness into his universe, with a lot of comments about what it really means to be good, what it means to be a hero, what it means to be strong. And I think we've lost that along the way. And I think Skeleton Crew is just delivering it in spades. I mean, that whole conversation with Hayna and Neel on the rooftop about him being like, yeah, I've never really been in a fight. I guess I am weak, but here's what I think. And her being like, you're pretty wise. I'm like, this is the goods right here. Yeah.
Speaking of the goods, let's get into the goods. Let's break this thing down here, section by section here. So it's going to be 3 sections, and we'll blaze through. I'll blaze through what happened in each of the sections, and then we'll discuss it and break it down here. So the crew ends up at Acchran, as we said here, after a little exchange between Fern and Judge, showing that she's in control and Jod is not. Although Jod, for being a captain, is confused about what's going on with the ship being in some sort of tractor beam or whatever is going on here. So I'm confused how much of a captain he really was on a ship, considering all these questions he's asking. But the planet itself has a familiar vibe to them. As they walk out, they think it might be Attin, but they quickly realize it is not their world, even though there are elements that are similar to their world. And as the kids explore at Acchran, Fern orders Jod to stay on the ship with SM-33 looking after him, and SM-33 initiates the babysitting sequence, which reminded me of was it the training wheel sequence from Spider-Man with Iron Man? I thought that was cool. Jod goes through the kids' things though while he's there on the ship, because of course, and finds Wim's credits and is almost killed by 33 for being a thief, who seems to not remember that it's Jod at all until Jod has to remind him. But then 33 starts talking about Acchran as this dangerous place. So there's more here with SM-33 than we thought. The kids stumble upon some ruins and are seized by a group of young soldiers led by Hayna, who asks them to declare what flag they fly. We're then told about the Hatton warriors who come marching by here, kind of similar to Andor, where we saw them walking through Andor's city there. Hayna leads the crew to her clan, the Troik, and they meet her father, General Strix, who's played by Mateo Kasovitz. For those of you who don't remember him, he is the young guy in Amelie. It's been a while since we've seen him. He says he has no knowledge of Attin and really concerns himself with the off-worlders. But just like Sonny in the Godfather scene during that Salazzo meeting, Hayna reveals a little too much about this fallen sanctum, which pisses off General Strix here, and says that there's old carvings to take a look at. So Strix says he's willing to help the children if they train and prove their worth in the Troik's fight against the Hatton. Reluctantly, the children agree to train. Neel and Hayna take a walk to discuss the horrors of war versus peace and compare childhoods. And then Hayna responds with her programming, as Michael was alluding to, by calling Neel weak for not being a fighting clan and crowing how she will one day lead her clan to victory. But Neel's kindness and Neel's softness about it and accepting, yeah, I might be weak, but the only time I ever fought was with my brother and this and that. And so it kind of softens Hayna in her approach and gives her a different perspective. So let's stop there. Michael, good intro, good, interesting exploration here that there's planets who look like other planets. What does that mean? Another planet, and also this walking into this civil war that's happening as a commentary on war, as you said. So what are your thoughts on this opening scenes here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think we said last week, I mean, the mystery of what Attin is and what these 9 planets meant to the Republic in Star Wars at whatever point they were super, like, that mystery is keeping Star Wars fans going right now. Like, we are very intrigued and we want to understand this. And I think it's also a big, like, long-term, really quick, I think it's like a win for Lucasfilm. We talk a lot about them needing to add new stuff. Like when they added Grogu, that was a win. We all love Grogu. We want to see Grogu grow up. These 9 jewels of the Republic and what they meant to the Republic when they were built, this is going to give us Star Wars novels, comic books, stories, references for years to come, because it's really cool and it's new. Like, we like it. But I think also getting into this episode, landing on a planet, like they showed up and I'm like, oh, are they home in episode 4? And then you're like, really quickly, you're like, no, you're not. But what's going on? Like, before we realize that this is at Acchran, like, and it's not at Attin, that mystery for that 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so that is, like, it's really compelling. You're sitting, like, you're off your game as a viewer, which is where you want your audience to be. You're like, what's going on? Like, how is this working? And then when you do discover what's happening, you know, we talk a lot about them being kids, which I think Shannon nailed it. I think this episode really shows that they really are kids that are overwhelmed and out of their depth. You could have taken them to any planet where there was a fight going on and it could have been fun. But putting them in a place that looks exactly like their home, but is torn apart by war, I think really, like, hits the message home that they come from this sheltered place, but it also makes where they're fighting feel more real, and like the stakes of it are bigger for them. Like, seeing what looks like Fern's home in ruins, seeing these people living basically in their school, like all of these little things, like, it makes it more real for them. So I thought it was really fun. You know, the second that they leave, I love them leaving Jod on the ship. I love SM-33's babysitting protocols. Like,
come here, baby.
Come here, baby. Like, I chuckled and I was like, this is the kind of humor that I think people are afraid sometimes to put in Star Wars, because they're like, is that too cheesy? And I'm like, nope, this is great. And then when Jod was going through everything on the ship and 33 caught him and said the planet was confusing his memories. This is the moment where I was like, oh, this is Ben from Treasure Planet. I see what's happening. He knows what's going on. Like
Right.
Captain, whatever his captain, which will be the Treasure Island, Treasure Planet Captain Flint, whoever this is for Star Wars. Like I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see what's going on. But then I really enjoyed them getting pulled into this civil war. And like you said, like I think just the visuals of it, seeing the Eopes, seeing them all marching with what looked like an old battle droid transport. You know, it inherently they took all those little bits and pieces of it and took something that could have felt very generic and made it feel like it was really entrenched in the Star Wars universe. Like it really just felt real. And then leading into the kids running around, like, you know, Wynn and Fern. I think we talk a lot about how Wynn is a goofball, but Fern is just barely getting by. I mean, neither of them are particularly great. KB is a great shot, and Neel, I think, is the smartest out of all of them. Like, I think that's what this episode is like. Neel's really the wisest of all of them. But so, like, him and Hayna going away, and again, just seeing the results of this civil war, it's like, and I want to watch the episode again and really take it in, but we look at them, and as Shannon said, they're 4 kids. They're from the suburbs. Like, they've never fought anyone in their life. They've been thrown into this battle where everyone is more experienced than them. Like, whether it be the pirates, whether it be the freedom fighters, everyone's more experienced, everyone's more violent, everyone is more, and they just feel like not only do they not belong, but they feel like they're not enough to be the heroes of this story. And I think Neel's kindness here and kind of seeing them, like watching these kids who are not enough for the world that they've entered into, going on this journey and slowly bit by bit, learning how to be the kind of heroes they want to be, I think is what the arc of this show is. And I think that's why this episode really, in the big scheme of things, was a really important episode for them, like where they were really faced with all of these things where they were really out of their depth. Like this episode kind of broke them a little bit. Like it broke Fern.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get to for sure. Shannon, what are your thoughts on these opening scenes leading to that conversation between Neel and Hayna? And by the way, Hayna played by Kansas City actress Hala Finley, doing a good French accent here. What are your thoughts on these opening scenes and that conversation with Neel and Hayna?
So as they're approaching that planet, you see like these like satellites that are kind of orbiting the planet, and it's like, oh, is this? I didn't think it was at Attin. I'm like, that's really quick for them to get back. We've got a lot more episodes. I'm like, okay, is this this planet's version of the barrier that they talk about? And then when you land on the planet and you see how different the weather is, how it's all overcast and it's foggy, it's like, oh, is that what these satellites do? And it's like, were these a bunch of experimental planets? Like, we're going to set this experiment up, and like, we're going to give this planet this climate, we're going to give this planet peace, and we're kind of going to see what happens. Like, again, this is just me speculating. One of the advantages, again, of having the subtitles on, when they land and Jod says, you know, Renaud's ghost is real, Renaud is Donner spelled backwards. So it's like, that's great. I love the babysitter sequence, the babysitter, activating babysitter sequence. Come on, baby, back on the ship, baby. Like that, to me, was the humor that really, really worked. But maybe in the hands of a different performer, maybe it doesn't land. But I thought it was really, really great. As they're going around and they're seeing sort of all of the identical aspects from this planet to theirs, when they're talking about this tree is small, like this tree is huge right now. Then I started like, is this like a time travel thing?
Yeah,
like,
I the same thing. Yeah.
Like it's all of these theories kind of being thrown out there. When we get Jod on the ship and he takes the gold and he bites it, I'm like, that's a classic prospector pirate thing. When 33 confronted him for a second, I was like, no, 33 is loyal to these kids, and he sees Jod going through their crap when he says, "Oh, we've got a dirty thief." I was like, "Oh no, this is exactly what the droid would do." But then, as you start to see that he does have some memories of what this planet was, fascinating. The kid showing up, Whim's enthusiasm, where he says, "Are you like an army of kids battling adults for the control of the planet?" Again, that's just such a childlike thing, sort of a Lord of the Flies light
Yeah.
thing that I thought was so much fun. And then as the other the Hattins or the Hattans, whatever they're called, as they go past, Hayna again brought up in warfare, clearly, but also a kid. Because she does this unnecessary baseball slide that does nothing because that army is gone. And so I was like, oh, that's really funny. Yeah, like watching how the school is being used as like barracks almost. Like this is where they have to take shelter because the rest of the planet is bombed out. And then Hayna taking Neel to the top, and you see this old cannon, and like you get a sense of the age, but also sort of the wear and tear on the planet as well, because as they kind of activate it, you hear the screeching of the metal. Like this is something that has seen better days. But I also wonder, has that cannon ever been fired? Because that thing's aimed up. So it's like, is this connecting? Is this one of the things that would potentially connect the other planets? Again, this is all just speculation on my part. But listening to Neel talk about, well, if you all just keep raiding each other, like how does this end? If you just keep attacking, it's like, I would just say sorry. Like it's, again, that's such a sweet and earnest point of view, but it's also, that's the point of view of a kid. Like, eventually this is never going to end. So why doesn't someone just be the bigger person and apologize?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can add much more to what you guys broke down here. I think for me, what stood out is that you're seeing the kids. I like the kids, as I said when I was doing the description, the kids moving off on their own. Like they're going to go figure this out. They're going to explore, leaving John on the ship. And clearly the power dynamic, at least in their minds, has shifted. But you can tell that John is like, I'm just going along with this for now. Now, I can, at any moment I want to take control of this thing, I will take control of this thing. And so he goes on with this. But what we see with the kids and their experiences and this whole thing, like their eyes are being opened up to a whole nother existence, a whole nother world. And as you said, Michael, I think this is what breaks them a little bit when later on when Fern is crying and Wim is getting into these situations because he just barrels in. But notice what happens to him later on when Joan reveals that he used his credits. Wim puts his head down and kind of trudges away because it's another disappointment with this guy who was supposedly a Jedi. So they're growing as they're being exposed to these things because they're leaving their bubble and they're walking out and seeing what's actually going on in other places. They're being exposed to this stuff and having to react to it. Shan, you made a great point. Wim sees it all as a game and a fun little adventure. And, it's like a cool little thing I can write about in the future. Everyone else seems to really be grasping what's happening, including KB in certain moments throughout these opening scenes as well. And of course, she's a great shot. No surprise on that. But Hayna's saying like, well, your friends are kind of a little foolish because they're running off and still playing. And Neel's the much more calmer of it all. He was more the observer. And she and they have this conversation going forward. I love that conversation because, I mean, look, the world right now is crazy. It's in all kinds of places, in all kinds of countries. And so there's a real divide that's happening. And so a commentary like this about, look, it just will become a repetitive pattern and no one ever will really win. And he's saying, well, why doesn't someone just apologize? Let's put this all back together. Let's come back together and figure things out. I think is a real smart commentary to make and a timely one in what's going on in our world right now. So I appreciated the exchange between the two of them. And I thought the voiceover work there was great from Robbie Conyers, who was really exploring the depth of that in relation to what Hala Finley was doing. So yeah, good stuff there. Let's move on to the next section here. Apparently the kids are done with their training that was really compartmentalized. So Strick lets them lead them out to battle, which is a really weird decision by General Strix to do this, to use them essentially as the first people to get killed or whatever, especially when he said he doesn't really get involved in off-worlder stuff. The kids are understandably nervous, and Captain Fern, who tries to get them out of it, but Strix dangles the fallen Sanctum in front of them. And as they march through the fog here, Fern questions her role as captain. And just when they think they're about to fight the Hatton, who comes out of the fog but Jude and SM-33, who had been captured by the Attin, as we saw in an earlier scene. Jude returns the stolen Eopes here and reveals that he negotiated with the Attin to make this happen. I don't know how this all happened, and maybe there's missing scenes where this all happened. But Strix offers him whatever he wants, and all he asks for in return is the children. Fern is impressed by Jude, even if Wim is a bit more disappointed with him, as I said, because Jude reveals that he used Wim's credits in order to bargain with the Attin for the Eope, but essentially got them out of the situation here. And Hayna takes Jude and the crew to the fallen Sanctum now. Neel, as they get close to the Sanctum and they're about to walk in, Neel tries to get Hayna to come with them, but she says she can't leave her people behind, and hopes that one day as a leader, she can usher in a better way of living for them and her people as a result of having known Neel. So this is a quick section here. So Shannon, your thoughts on this conversation? How did Jude make this happen? Why are the kids being let out as the leads of these battles? And then at the end, do you buy that Jude made this deal and that they got into this position of being able to? And the final conversation here between Neel and Hayna.
Well, I don't know how great a General Strix is, but basically these 4 children, they're not his people. So he's like, absolutely, we're going into battle. You're going to be up front. I don't want to lose one of my people. So when Hayna volunteers to go into this, the exchange between her and Neel was very, very sweet. Yeah, where she's just like, I know you're scared. When someone is scared, they need a friend with them. I'm like, that's gorgeous. But also looking at little Neel shaking as he's the one going forward, like he's the one leading the charge into this fog and saying, I am scared. Like, oh my gosh, it's just so heartbreaking. The moment where Jude Law shows up, with the last scene we saw, he's literally getting on his knees after they've said, what flag do you fly? He's like, just go ahead and shoot me. Which, I mean, I think we skipped past that, but I thought that was a very funny take. Yeah, there's obviously I don't know if they shot it. Ultimately, is it that interesting to watch him bargain for this cattle? Probably not. I mean, you got the information that you needed to get when he said, they had these things. I gave away a couple of credits. The reaction to the kids seeing Jude. This is the part where I'm like, I wish they'd had one more adventure in between them escaping the port and this to kind of, I don't know, just solidify that base a little bit more, because watching, I especially the kids just going up, running up and hugging him. I get the point of view that it's like they're looking for anything familiar right now. But this guy literally, he did just kind of admit to the fact that I didn't say I was a Jedi. Like he's sort of admitting that he has maybe misled them a little bit. Yeah. So I think I just wanted one more thing in there. But I mean, ultimately, I thought it all worked. That final conversation between Neel and Hayna. Neel is the chunk of this group, and he's saying my home has plenty. Like, you can come with us. Like, my house has plenty of space.
You're gonna live with us now.
The Troik are sloth collectively. But you just see the giving heart and Hayna acknowledging, like, maybe when I'm in charge one day, I'm going to take some of these lessons from you, which I thought that was really, really nice. After he got the kiss on the cheek, I really did want the other kids to go, ooh, because I feel like that's something a child would have done. But as we're watching Hayna run away, she again does one more flip for no apparent reason other than to just imprint on Neel, you're never going to forget me.
Yeah. Also, because she's a kid and flips are cool.
Yeah, flips are cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, she's a kid. Why am I going to flip here? Because.
I love the way they shot his after face after the kiss. The eyes are wide, a slow motion, the hair is billowing.
You see his hair
perfect. It was so perfect. Michael, your thoughts on these scenes here as we go out into a possible battle? Jude saves the day, and then the conversation here between Neel and Hayna.
Well, yeah, I mean, just touching on it really quick, the entire scene of 33 and Jude coming down as Jude is trying to get information about Attin. He's like, the treasure. And he's like, the warriors, like these guys. And he's like, no, I don't care about warriors. Tell me about the treasure. And then the fog clears and they're all just standing there, and Jude Law's reaction, like it was very Han Solo.
Yes.
Like, it was very like Han being like, oh, Chewie, it's like, it was just like that right vibe of like, this guy, this like kind of roguish smuggler who's like, oh god damn it, yeah, just shoot me, I give up, I don't get, like, the whole thing was really, really good. The other show, I mean, that I think I was thinking of during this episode, and like as they were, the moment that they were sent out to the front lines, which I agree with Shannon, it made sense to me. I'm like, oh, this motherfucker, he's like, sure, I'm gonna, you can train to prove yourself. He's like, he wants cannon fodder.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna put you out front so we can see where the bad guys are, or where the Hatton are, and then we'll shoot them. But like, you're just there to get shot.
Yeah.
And the fact that Hayna stands up for them, I think, was really nice. And it really made me think, actually, of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think what Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, did such a good job of was you had a bunch of kids that felt like they were kids that were constantly put into very adult situations where it kind of turned on a dime from being cute and funny to being like, oh, shit just got real. And when they were all walking out there, like, not that I thought that Neel was going to get shot, but like not knowing, like they really captured the feeling when like KB was like, Fern, what do we do? And Neel being afraid and them kind of walking out there, like there was this moment of tension where you're like, so what's going to happen? Like these kids are put in the middle of a war zone. Like where is this going? And this is why I actually disagree with Shannon about having anything between the last episode and this episode as far as the kid's relationship with Jod. These kids don't trust Jod. Like they're like, you told us you were a Jedi, you're not a Jedi, you double-crossed us, you just want the treasure, we don't trust you, we're leaving you with 33, like you're no good, like we do not trust you at all. And then they are in this literal life or death situation where they think they're about to get shot at. And all of a sudden, he steps out. And for a moment, because we didn't know what happened with him and the Hattan, I'm like, oh, was he also put on the front lines? Is this what they do? Like, they just put people on the front lines.
Wow.
Where is this going to go? And he was like, oh, these are yours. And just that moment where you realize that he has solved everything off screen and that the kids are no longer in danger, like the moment of dramatic tension that just kind of melts into, oh, everything's okay, Jude Law fixed it. Had you had another episode where he was a little bit softened up and they liked him a little bit more, or had you seen the scene where he made the deal and gave them the credits, like that moment wouldn't have worked. And I feel like that moment was so satisfying of like, oh, this motherfucker's like, oh yeah, I fixed it. Here, these are yours. Take them back. We're good. No problems here. And just the ease with which he did it. Like I bought that they hugged him. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I thought I was about to get shot. And then, but like again, just kind of going back to that Long John Silver vibe, they're like, oh, because Fern was like, you actually helped us. And they're like, oh my God, maybe this guy is a good guy. He's like, yeah, I gave him some credits. And Wynn's like, you stole my credits? And he's like, yeah, but to help you. Like he just like they keep doing that balance of, oh, I'm kind of a good guy, but I'm also a shitty guy. But I'm a good guy and I'm a shitty guy. And I thought it was just really, really well done and just fun. Like it was just this really fun moment. And then, Neel, what was the girl that he's in love with in his class? Rona?
Oh, yeah, Rona, yeah.
He is going to roll back onto Attin and he is going to knock Rona off her feet because he has now met a real woman. Yeah. He has now seen what real love is. Rona, he's going to be like, babe, I'm taking you to prom. And she's going to be like, oh, like he's becoming a man. So like the goodbye scene with her was really, really sweet. And this is where Star Wars, again, the fact that we had a human female actress roll up and have this emotional goodbye with a blue elephant with a cute little hairdo, and she kisses him on the cheek and flips off into the distance, and we're all like, that was really sweet. Like, she kissed a fucking Muppet, and we're all like swooning over Neel. That's when Star Wars is really working. So I thought it was all lovely.
Yeah, I agree. Good point there. And it feels very 80s to have that moment happen, right?
Very
like you'll never see her again, but you had that moment and you'll always think about it. And it reminded me of the Elliot scene when he, spins the girl around in the class when ET is drunk, right? He's got this like moment where he becomes this hero. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Neel's going to do that once he gets back on Attin for sure. All right, let's move into the last section here in the Fallen Sanctum. The kids, John and 33, go into the Fallen Sanctum. They discover intergalactic coordinates etched into these columns for at Atu, at Arisia, at Aravan, at Akota, and at Attin. But the coordinates for at Attin are destroyed here, leaving them with no route back to their home again. SM33, though, reveals that he destroyed the coordinates in a bit of a twist. And when he was on at Acchran with his former captain, but he's unable to recall anything other than that. This shocks Fern, and she just kind of breaks and runs off here with Wim going after her. Wim reassures her that she's a good captain, and they wouldn't have gotten as far when she says that Wim should have been captain. They wouldn't have gotten as far with him as they did with her, which I thought was a really nice thing for him to say. Then he's like, you'll figure it out. You'll always figure it out. And she's like, I'm not a droid. I can't figure these things out, and starts to walk away. And guess what? She figures it out. Fern uses the same workaround that she used on her family's droid in the premiere, and it works with SM33 to a point. SM33 remembers everything about Attin, which was a nice surprise, and reveals that his captain, though, killed everyone who saw the coordinates that Attin, and that he was ordered to, quote, pull apart limb from limb anyone who saw the coordinates or came looking for Attin. So he goes after Fern, KB, and Wim, and John tries to help, but his blaster is not working. Hello. But Neel saves the day by throwing a rock at SM33, which distracts him. He goes after Neel, and when he goes after him, John jumps on him, turns him off, and as the kids are praising Neel passes out and faints. So a good ending there for the end of the episode. Mike, your thoughts on this big reveal and this scary moment with SM33 and Neel saving the day?
Well, I really love that the Fallen Sanctum is the Supervisor's Tower. So now we know what the Supervisor's Tower looks like on at Attin. And they do mention the fact that nobody's allowed to go to the Supervisor's Tower. So like we are now we've gotten to see this ruined Supervisor's Tower that had all these coordinates, and ostensibly that's more or less what the Supervisor's Tower is like on at Attin. And so I'm really curious to see the nicer, cleaned up working version of it that we're going to ostensibly see at some point. The reveal of all of it, very cool. Like, it's still very Star Wars. You go up into the thing and you get out there, and in the center there's the giant, I forget what it's called, but where the holograms appear. Like the big hologram appearance thing, like you get at Rise of Resistance in the middle of the room, the technical term. But I love that, and this is where like Star Wars, that mixture of like technology and oldness, like you have this technological thing in the center, but around the room you have all these carvings on stone, and it just feels very ancient. The second that the coordinates on at Attin were like clearly slashed out, I was like, oh, that's 33. 33 did that. Okay, I've seen Treasure Planet. I see where we're going with this. So I knew that like 33's memories were locked. Like I was like, okay, he clearly knows, and they did a good job of that whole. I don't know what's the name of the episode.
Oh wait, hold on.
Can't say I remember. No,
can't say. Like he said it enough times in the exact way that it was like you understood at this point. Like, oh, this is what he was programmed to say. But then I thought that scene again with Fern and Wim was really nice for both of them. Like for the first 3 episodes, Fern is like tough and just like telling Wim how dumb he is at every turn. And Wim, for the most part, is showing us that he's pretty dumb. Like that pretty much is like what the 3 episodes have been. And this episode, just this moment, was really, really nice for both of them in that Fern reached her limit. Like she's crying. Like she's a kid who can't get home, and she put herself in charge, but now has no answers and is feeling overwhelmed. And for Wim in that moment to kind of be like, you're awesome. I would have never gotten us this far. And for her to sort of admit her vulnerability, and him to admit that as much as he keeps saying he wants to be in charge, he recognizes that she is kind of the better leader. It was a really lovely moment for both of them. And then just a good bit of screenwriting, like for her to go, I'm not a droid. I'm not a droid. I don't know. I don't do what anybody says for me. Oh shit, that's the solution. Like it was, like when you have to make those giant leaps where someone has to have, I figured it out all of a sudden. When you have a good bit of screenwriting like that, it really, really helps, which was really, really nice. And then, her kind of getting him, again, in Treasure Planet, Captain Flint literally took Ben's memory card out and held the memory card so that he couldn't tell anybody where his treasure was. Here's basically more or less the same thing, except it was an order. And her ordering him to remember everything as the captain, really great moment. You're like, okay, here we go. Now we're going to get to the coordinates. Now we can get to the next part. But then having him turn on them and become like much bigger. And all of a sudden this like goofy, Mr. Smee droid got very, very scary, very, very fast. And even like the shot where they had the camera on him, like just good bit of directing. Like it was super, super intimidating. And all of a sudden you had this thing where you're like, how are you going to stop this guy? Like what happened here? Like I know this episode is almost over and I do not know how you get out of this. And because this is kind of Neel's episode where we saw Neel not want to fight, then we saw Neel speak very eloquently about how he is not a fighter and he would just, it's not his thing. And then we got to see Neel be very, very, very afraid and admit how scared he was. To have him be the one that threw that rock to protect his friends, it's just like that hits home. Like that feels good. So him doing that, and then Jod at the last minute shutting 33 down, really great. Hilarious that Neel passes out. Like he is the MVP of this series. Like Neel is Star Wars royalty at this point. Put him up there with Grogu. I want to see Neel for the next 30 years of Star Wars. But also, I don't know where we go next. I'm assuming that like all of the other planets that are up there probably have towers as well.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming you can go to any one of these planets, go to the supervisor's tower, and hopefully one of them has the coordinates to Attin. So that seems like the most likely route that we're going to go next, because I don't think we're turning 33 back on. I mean, I'm sure 33 is going to get turned back on, but now it's like, what is that? Where is Attin? Why is Attin? Like, how do we get 33 to be back on our side? Like, there's a whole list of things that I'm like, all right, I'm engaged. I want to know what happens next.
I'll go one further. What is Attin? I agree. And Shannon, before you jump, I just want to toss in real quick. Who is this captain? That's the other part of this. Yeah. Who is this captain that killed all these people and wanted SM-33 to rip the limbs off? Is the captain the supervisor on Attin? I don't know. No. So there's questions. I don't know.
It is like this is where looking at Treasure Island is a really, because this is just Treasure Island in the Star Wars universe. So there was a Captain Flint, whatever his name is going to be in here, and he and 33 and his crew found the location of Attin, killed his whole crew, told 33 not to tell anybody. They flew to Attin. They clearly got there because that's where the ship is. And then there's like at least two pirates that died on that ship. Yeah. So one of those skeletons is probably their Captain Flint. If not, maybe he took over and he's the supervisor now. I don't know. But like that, that mystery, and then how Jod as Captain Silvo found out about this, thought he had found this treasure on this ship at the very beginning of the first episode, and is the fact that ship that was empty of credits, does that actually have something to do with Attin? Like, was this ship leaving Attin? Had they just dropped off money? So it's going to be interesting to see how all these pieces fall into place.
Agreed. Shannon, your thoughts on these final scenes here leading to Neel passing out in his moment of glory?
I mean, again, shot really well. That's just like the mystery, the peel, it's slowly starting to be peeled away. Whoever SM-33's captain was did a one-eyed Willy on the rest of the crew because he didn't want any of them to find the treasure. And my guess is that this is not a physical treasure, that this is like an Attin. There's not just these things of gold. I think it was, again, this is just me thinking maybe the planet is the treasure in that there was no war there. And I know that's not the most satisfying answer.
I mean, in the trailer, we see some treasure.
Sure, but we also have 4 more episodes. My guess is that they are going, like, there are coordinates to 7 other planets that they can potentially go to. So they're going to go to those other planets to see if they can find the coordinates to Attin. Unless SM-33 is like, yep, we went to everything, got rid of all these coordinates. So yeah, I mean, the moment that, again, leaning into the 80s-ness as 33 starts to expand and his arms and legs start to lengthen, and you get that shot. I mean, that's the Terminator shot from 1984.
Yeah,
That
great
point of
point.
view where you see it's kind of wobbly, like you can see like the puppeteer actually kind of moving him back and forth. So you get that, that walking motion. But also they are starting to understand 33 is a dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
That this thing could potentially kill all of us. Now, obviously, 33 is going to be redeemed because that's what happens. But thus far, I mean, that was scary. Like rip it limb from limb, limb from limb. Like that was truly, truly frightening. So, I mean, seeing how Jod again is the one who saves the day and that he's able to hit the power button. It's just a really, really entertaining show right now. And again, I will be very curious to see who the captain was. My guess is that the captain's somewhere on the ship, dead. But the looking at our parents, I'm like, I don't know who any of these people would have been a captain unless it's Fern's mom's boss.
Maybe.
The supervisor.
Yeah, the supervisor.
That's what I was thinking. And I mean, that's why I reacted to my reaction. I said that might be the supervisor. Could be Wendell. Could be Wynn's dad. And that's what he's been hiding the whole time. And he's been all kind of playing the supervisor and also playing. So I don't know. There's all kinds of
I don't think that timing works out. That ship has been buried for a long time.
That's true. That's true.
Like Flint didn't land on Attin 8 years ago.
Yeah,
I keep saying Flint. The SM-33 and his captain, whoever the captain is, they landed on Attin a long time ago, and Attin has been around for a long time. So even Captain Silvo, who Jod, going after this treasure with Brutus and his crew at the beginning of the series, this is a treasure that the legends of Attin have bin around for long enough that it like whatever Kim says, it's in pirate shanties and fairy stories. Yeah. So this is whatever this journey to find out Attin was like. This happened a long time ago. So even if that person became the supervisor, I don't think they would be the supervisor now. Like this, like it's like One-Eyed Willie. Like this person lived a long time ago. Yeah, I think Shannon, you said that last episode of Dread Pirate Roberts repeating itself or something like that. I think that was you. Yeah. So I agree. And I thought this great few scenes. I know we got to wrap up here. So, but I thought the last few scenes were really great in showing that. Just like in those 80s, what made those 80s films so great is that with all the kid stuff and all the things they were navigating, there was actual real threats of stuff happening. There was actually a real danger in those movies. And I like that. I mean, it was the government in E.T. or in the Goonies, what they're going to lose and the whole family coming after them, these adults coming after these kids. So there was real danger that was always underneath the surface. So seeing SM-33 all of a sudden turn on the kids, and because he's programmed to do so, that's a scary thing. Dealing with that kind of technology that can turn on you is pretty scary. And we saw elements of that in a lot of 80s films, technology turning on the creators or possibly turning on the people that were part of it. So what's that all going to lead to? But Neel stepping to the forefront, I love it. So I think now we got to focus on KB next, maybe, and kind of establish her a little bit. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Although, some people are going crazy about her having two moms and shit. But other than that, I can't wait to see what we're going to get with KB now to flesh her out. Because as you said, Shannon, we got 4 more episodes. We got all these locations to go to before we get back to solve the mystery of Attin. And as you both have said, what is this treasure? It's so going to be real curious to see it. All right. Well, anyway, that's our. Any final words, guys? Are we good? Are we good to wrap up here? No, it continues to be a blast, and it's really nice to wrap up the year with something that everybody seems to agree is a ton of fun. Like this is a good indicator for Lucasfilm and Disney of like, hey, more of this.
Yeah, agreed. Shannon, any final words?
Again, I think they call it the eternal treasure of Attin. Eternal, that sounds like a planet to me, not money.
Well, they said there was mining too, right? So what is it that they're mining on the planet? That's a great point. Yeah. Could it be Kyber crystals? I don't know. All right. Well,
the treasure was the journey and the adventure that we had along the way.
We learned something. All right. Well, there you go. That's our spoiler review here for episode 4 of Skeleton Crew. Thank you all so much for joining us, whether you're watching or listening to us on the podcast feed. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Roca, it is at The Roca Says.
Mikey?
Go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. What did you think of this episode? What do you think Attin is? What do you think of Neel and his future romantic prospects? Let us know all of that in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. And remember, our main show coming out later on this weekend. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode of Skeleton Crew on Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddy!